So meditation, the way meditation works, I think it's important to understand meditation. And that's why the teachings are available. That's why the teachings are so important, because unless you understand what you're doing, it will be very limited. And unless you understand what you're doing, your ability to do it will be very limited. Because you will, if you attempt to meditate over time, every single day the way it needs to be done to produce the result, your mind will challenge you. The voice in your head will challenge you. Your emotions will challenge you. Circumstances will challenge you. So you make up your mind, so to speak, to meditate every single day, and you have some general idea about meditation. You think it's cool, you would like to do it, you think it would help to reduce stress, and it's true that it will. But you won't be able to establish a meditation practice without understanding more about how it works, because if you understand more about how it works, you'll understand that until and unless you wake up to your true nature, until and unless you wake up to what you really are, your life will not work. You know, one of my Zen teacher commented on this, and he said, to try and live a personal life and have that life work is naive. It's naive. And what does he mean by that? He means that to try and live a life as if your life is separate from the world, as if you are separate from the rest of reality. And to try and, once that's the case, then you have to try and control what's happening. If you're going to be happy, you've got to try and control what's happening. You've got to try to avoid things that scare you. You have to try and avoid things that disturb you and upset you. So your life becomes a process of trying to get more of what you like and what's pleasurable and less of what you don't like, that's uncomfortable. And this takes many different forms, you know. It takes the form of trying to get enough money to be able to control your life, trying to get the right circumstances to be able to control your life. And even though it continues to fail, since human beings don't know any other way, don't see any alternative to it, and since it seems like the whole tribe is playing this game, you know, all of humanity is playing this game, it seems as though that's all there is to do, you know, to just try harder, do something different, do more of something, do less of something. And while we do this from the viewpoint of a personal life, we keep failing. And this is one of the reasons that people end up coming to see me in my private practice, because the failures start adding up and people start to feel anxious, because anxiety is fear, start to become fearful that this situation is never going to work out, that life is never going to work out. And then the anxiety becomes a new problem, living with anxiety about it. Or even worse, living with depression about it. Depression is like a sense of futility. It's a sense of hopelessness. This is never going to get any better. No matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, even when it seems to make a difference, that difference never lasts. And this is the ordinary life that people are living, most of humanity is living. And they don't see an alternative. And some people get so desperate that they just want to die. They don't want to continue. Or they get so desperate that they lose their mind. They go crazy, you know, and become suicidal and angry and frustrated. And so they want to kill other people and kill themselves. We're seeing more of that now. So what these teachings have to offer us is they're telling us that through the practice of meditation, that there is another reality that's available. that there is a reality other than the personal life. As a matter of fact, it says that the personal life is an aberration, that the personal life is an illusion, that the personal life isn't actually real. It's a thought process. You think you're your body. You think you're an individual personality. You think the world is the way you learned it is. You think there's something to be afraid of. You think there's something to work hard to get. And so you have this world that got created through thinking. And you're living in that world. You wake up in the morning and the voice in your head starts talking to you about the day, presents you with the things that you're afraid of, presents you with the things that you're attracted to. And so you go through the day after day, working it, trying to get it to work. So meditation and these teachings tell us that it's possible to slow down. It's possible to slow down and pay attention. And when you slow down and pay attention, you're creating a certain atmosphere. You're creating a certain environment. And I heard a person comment on meditation at a talk last night, and she said, I don't know, she said, nothing happens when I meditate. Nothing, it's just nothing. I'm just sitting there and nothing happens. But my life starts working. Nothing happens when I meditate, but my life starts working. And the teacher said, yeah, that's how it works, you see, because meditation is creating an environment for who you are to show up, eliminating a lot of the distraction that occurs through thinking and being occupied all the time with the reality that you believe in, being occupied all the time with what you were conditioned to believe is the truth. So when you practice meditation, you're slowing down, you're eliminating the noise, you're eliminating a lot of the noise, you're exposing yourself to the awareness of the body breathing, and when you're aware of the body breathing, you're aware of the present moment because the breath is always only happening in the present moment. And also the awareness that you are is only in existence in the present moment. So you're being exposed to something that's always there, but you've been ignoring because you've been living the life that thinking gives you. And as you do this, there is an environment there that allows something to happen. It could be thought of in terms of if you take a seed and you plant the seed in the soil, right? So it's in the soil now, so it's in an environment that's conducive to the possibility of the seed blossoming. And then if you water the seed, that's more of a conducive environment for it to blossom. And then if it's exposed to the sun, that's more of an environment that's conducive to it blossoming. And at some point, it just blossoms. It just happens, right? This is the same thing with meditation. By practicing meditation, you're providing an environment in which the seed is your awareness. The seed is your awareness. It's got the potential to blossom. It's got the potential to become you instead of just the awareness. In the ordinary course of events, people think that awareness is something they have, That's the way most people experience awareness. I am my physical body, I am a person, and this person has awareness. That's the way it's normally understood by most people, right? That's not actually the way it is, though. That's part of what's considered the conditioned understanding of it. And you're taking the truth about yourself, the essential reality that you are, which is awareness, and you're turning it into something you have instead of what you are. You're turning it into something you have. And because you turn it into something you have and you figure, well, okay, so what? I'm aware. So what? I'm aware. I'm busy though. I don't pay attention to awareness because I'm busy living my life. I'm busy doing what I think I need to do in order to be happy, in order to have my life work. So don't talk to me about awareness. Don't tell me that I should pay attention to awareness. Where is that? That's not going anywhere. I got to do something here. But when you slow down and you practice and you start to expose yourself to this awareness and you start to understand that it's not something you have, it's something that has you. Because without the awareness, you're not here. The idea you're being alive means that you're aware. That is your life, is awareness. And so you come to understand that, and you had it backwards, So so gradually you start to catch on. You start to catch on to the truth. And as you catch on to the truth, now you're providing a nurturing environment for this awareness, like the water and the sunlight and the soil. When you meditate, you're providing a nurturing environment for this awareness. And because it's now in an environment where it can express itself, through the practice of meditation, gradually and eventually, this awareness blossoms. How does it blossom? You start to recognize that you are the awareness. And when you start to recognize that you are the awareness, you start to experience what it's like to be the awareness instead of being the personality. And when you start to experience what it's like being the awareness, you start to experience that this awareness is always here. This awareness is never upset. It's very stable. It never changes. It's never upset. It's not thinking. It's not feeling. It simply is. It simply is. And then you realize that what you've been paying attention to that you thought was the most important aspect of your life is what's happening in the awareness. The awareness is not happening in it, it's happening in the awareness. And you start to realize, wait a minute, there's a way of being in the world that I'm discovering. It's not just some quirky thing that I'm doing, no. There's a way of being in the world that I'm discovering. I can start to be in the world in such a way, whereas the awareness of what I'm thinking, I am not the thinker anymore. When I become aware of the thinking activity, I begin to realize there's a voice in my head talking to me and it's not me. And because I'm aware of that, I'm not attached to it anymore, I'm not identified with it anymore, and it's not disturbing me anymore, it's not troubling me anymore. Same thing with emotions. When I'm aware of emotions, it's like I'm a witness to them. Instead of being upset, I'm aware that there's upset. But being aware that there's upset, the upset's not affecting me anymore. I'm aware of it. This is a transformational reality. This is going to change my life. Because if I can be aware of the thoughts instead of thinking I'm thinking them, they don't bother me the way they used to be. And if I can be aware of the emotions instead of believing that I am the emotions, I am angry, I am afraid. Instead of being angry and afraid, I'm aware of anger and fear, but I am not angry and I'm not afraid. And it's not affecting me anymore. And because it's not affecting me anymore, I don't behave afraid. I don't act afraid. I don't run away from things that I am afraid of. I can stay present to them. And because the thoughts don't bother me anymore, I can look at the thoughts and recognize when the thoughts are irrational, when they're unrealistic. And because they're irrational and they're unrealistic and I'm not thinking them, they're just happening in my mind, they're coming from my conditioning, because that's the case, I don't have to follow them anymore. I'm not the thinker of the thoughts. When I was the thinker of the thoughts, I believed the thoughts. I believed the thoughts. I thought when I was thinking my thoughts that I was just, the thoughts were a way of representing reality, right? And most people think that their thoughts are a way of representing reality. But when I started to wake up and be the awareness and look at the thoughts, I realized these thoughts aren't reproducing reality. These thoughts are different from reality. And I started to be able to tell the difference between what I think is happening and what is happening. And I started to realize a lot of the times what I think is happening is way off the mark, way off the mark. And I behave as if what I think is happening, and then I find myself in conflict with people. I find myself in conflict with life. I find myself unable to control the circumstances that are happening, and so I live a life where there's a lot of upset, because there's a difference between the way I think it is and the way it is. That means I'm going to be upset. There's a difference between the way I feel about what's happening and the way it's happening. That means I'm going to be upset. But when I wake up and learn about my true nature as awareness, I start to realize if I can be that, if that's what I really am and I can be that, then I'm free from the effect of thinking and I'm free from the effect of emotions. And if I'm free from the effect of thinking and the effect of emotions, I'm free to behave more realistically in relationship to what's actually happening. And when that's the case, my life starts to work where it didn't work before. Why? because I can be related, for example, I could be related to the people that I love in my life that I'm close to, and I can have the intention of having a loving relationship with them that works, and I can pay attention to being loving and being a way that has a relationship work. And when I'm paying attention to that, I'm not paying attention to the thoughts or feelings that might come up in that relationship, that if I paid attention to that, I'd be in conflict with this person. And so I realized that it's possible for me to be there and not be expressing what I think all the time and how I feel all the time, but rather be expressing the love that I have for this person and pay attention to what's actually happening instead of my interpretation about it. This can change your relationships. This can change your relationship with yourself. It can change your relationship with other people, and it can change your relationship to life in a way where everything just starts to work naturally. Because you're not living in a thought world anymore, you're living in a real world. You're living in what's actually happening. That's the blossoming of the awareness. That's when the awareness in you become the same thing. And when you're being the same thing as the awareness is, life starts to work. It's just that simple. There's nothing that you have to understand about the practice of meditation other than to understand that it's creating an atmosphere in which who you really are can show up. That's what it's doing. It's creating an atmosphere in which who you really are can show up. Now, it's going to take some time and some practice because you've been practicing not being who you really are, and that will still run in your head. Your brain is still conditioned to think that you're a person in your physical body, and that will still run in your head. But now, when you come to know yourself as awareness, you can look at that happening instead of be that. And when you can look at that happen instead of be that, you're free to start to live a different kind of life that works. So that's a little tidbit, that's a little insight into how meditation works. And you need to have that insight because to practice meditation every day is challenging until you get to a point where you start to experience the blossoming of your real true nature, and then it becomes very easy to practice meditation because you've accepted the challenge of your mind, you've tamed your mind, you've trained your mind not to interfere. So that's a little bit of insight into meditation, and it's important to understand that if you're serious about practicing meditation and having a discipline, having a meditation practice, if you're serious about having a meditation practice, then you have got to study the teachings. What are the teachings? What I just was describing is part of the teachings. You know, learning about your true nature, learning about your personality, learning about reality, learning about the misunderstandings that people have about who they are and about what's real, learning about that. And when you learn about that, you begin to realize everything starts turning inside out. Everything starts turning inside out. I had a guy that I was working with in my private practice today that was suffering from very intense anxiety, right? And I said to him, you know, we just started working together, and I said to him, someday you will look back at this anxiety and realize what a blessing it was. What a blessing it was. And I said, I know that's a paradox, right? I know that's a paradox, but the reason it's a paradox is because this anxiety that you're experiencing is pressuring you to wake up. It's pressuring you to notice the truth, right? That's the real function of the anxiety. That's the real function of the anger. That's the real function of the frustration, right? Because those intense emotions are trying to communicate with you that you're failing to experience the truth. Those experiences are trying to communicate that to you. That's why people in very difficult, serious, painful situations wake up. Because the pressure's on. The pressure's on. That's why Eckhart Tolle woke up when he did, because he was about to kill himself. He was miserable. He was about to kill himself, right? And just before he acted on it, he thought, wait a minute, I'm going to kill myself. Who is the me that's going to kill me, and who is the me that I'm going to kill? And he realized, wait a minute, there can't be two. There can't be two. And then all of a sudden he woke up and he realized who he really was. And he didn't have much experience with that, so it took him a while to get his grounding, you know. For a while he was kind of in a haze, you know. He just sat on park benches, amazed at everything, because he was now witnessing what it was like to be awake. But then gradually he learned about what had happened to him, right? And now he's one of the most famous teachers of meditation and awareness. The same kind of thing is true for many people. But the reality of it is, you don't have to be ready to kill yourself to wake up. All you have to realize is that you're already dead. You don't have to kill yourself to wake up. All you have to realize is you're already dead, because the life you're living is a zombie life. The life you're living is not really what being alive is, right? Living in a thought world is not living. Living in a thought world is not really being alive, right? That's why I named the book that I wrote, Dying to Live, right? Because if you understand the teachings, you want to die as soon as possible. If you understand the teachings, you want to die as soon as possible. You want who you think you are to die. Because who you think you are has never been alive. It's nothing but a thought process. And the sooner that dies, the sooner you'll be available to be alive and experience what life is all really about. So, let those who have ears hear. It's no accident that you're hearing me talk, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's in person. It's no accident that you're hearing me talk. All of these things are part of the opportunity being made available to you to wake up. And it's a blessing to be exposed to these teachings. It's a blessing to be exposed to these teachings. Now, the thing that's going to determine whether the job gets done, the thing that's going to determine whether the flower blossoms, right, is whether you grab the reins, whether you grab the wheel, whether you realize what's at stake here, whether you realize that your life is on the line. And if you realize your life is on the line, then you will do whatever it takes to keep the process going. They call that walking the path. You will walk the path. If you realize what's at stake, you will walk the path. What's that mean? You'll practice meditation, and you'll commit yourself to these teachings. You'll commit yourself to reading about them, to listening to teachers that teach these teachings. Why? So it can keep you motivated to stay at it as far as meditation is concerned, and keep you motivated to pay attention to what's going on all the time, so you can see the difference between living in your head and living in the world. Kabish? Okay.